Hi, my name is Carl Oakes. I'm a path worker here in New York State, and I have some ideas, some thoughts about the direction of the path work that I would like to share with you. What I'm calling this is Pathwork 2.0, and the reason I chose that name is that if you're familiar with computer software at all, you know that normally when a manufacturer releases software, they call it whatever it is, 1.0, and they might make some small changes to it and so forth, but generally what they do is they leave it out on the market for maybe a couple of years and they gather feedback from users to find out what works well and what doesn't, and what things they might not have thought of and so forth. And then they gather that all together and they come out with a new version of the software, which is still the same thing, but it's sufficiently kind of evolved compared to the original that there's kind of a quantum leap there, and that's why they call it 2.0 instead of 1.0. And I'm suggesting that here on Earth right now we're at a point where we have kind of an opportunity and maybe even, let's say, an imperative. I hate to use a word that sounds as kind of strong as that, but more than an opportunity, an imperative to look at what we have done so far in the path work and to make a conscious effort to evolve it to Pathwork 2.0. And I'm going to explain to you very clearly why, so you can evaluate that and see if it makes any sense to you. Let's consider that from 1957, when the lectures first came in, to the present, might be a phase of the growth of pathwork, and that from the present on into the future might be in some way a quantum separate phase. All right, so you might ask yourself, well, why should it be that way? Why shouldn't the progression just be kind of a linear growth? Why should there be this little hitch or jump point in between where we might want to apply some kind of intentional scrutiny along the lines of what a software manufacturer does during that kind of test phase, and then upgrade our product, so to speak? And also you might think, can we even upgrade the product at all and still be faithful to the lectures? To which my answer is yes, by the way. So why do we want to do that? Well, my thought about it is that we are on one side of a natural divide in the life of the movement, okay, or the organization, if you want to call it that, realizing that there are different sub-organizations and that they're not necessarily all the same in their subcultures and so forth. But there might be a natural divide, and that natural divide might mirror the natural divide that there is in the growth and the progression of the soul between the self-centered phase and the unitive phase. If you're familiar at all with Lecture 75, The Great Transition, you know that this is a fundamental organic dividing point in the progression of the soul, and beyond that, that getting from this side to this side, getting from self-centered to unitive consciousness, is actually the most fundamental goal of the pathwork, okay, which is something I want to come back to later. So I'm suggesting that basically when the lectures arrived in 1957, inevitably, this is not meant as a criticism of anybody, it's just a kind of an inevitable reality, it landed with people who were in a self-centered state of consciousness at that time. And so they received it with some self-centered perspectives and aims. For example, they may, I'm just speculating, they may have been focused on how can I use this to make my own life better. and as opposed to how might I also share this and enrich the world with it. And it may not have been black or white. Those thoughts may have been going on as well, but there was an important self-centered component at this time, inevitably, because nobody had been exposed to this material yet. And that also, people at that time, when they created the first Pathwork organization, created a culture and created a set of organizational structures and protocols and expectations and so forth that embodied a self-centered perspective. And those things, subtle as they may have been, would have showed up and importantly influenced such concepts as leadership, helpership, and conflict resolution, which might not be an obvious, an obvious thing to put up here, but it actually, the way you deal with conflict resolution speaks a lot to whether you have a self-centered or a unitive consciousness, and kind of feeds back into the system in a way that I'll show you in a little bit. So what I'm suggesting to you that you consider is that everything that has happened from 1957 until now originated in a dominantly self-centered consciousness, and that the self-centeredness of it was kind of institutionalized in various protocols and cultural expectations and practices such as these, and that then these practices became models, became expectations, channeled behaviors in certain way, and helped to keep us in a somewhat self-centered perspective. All right?